Rap with Reggie and Sam podcast. We are broadcasting live from a porta potty in the, I'm not sure, it's not a porta potty. We're broadcasting live from the Wembley Center, 165 MLK Drive here in Wyman, Georgia. And I'm scheduled to have some guests here, but they're later arriving, but they should be here pretty soon. And this is, again, as I posted earlier, probably about 30 minutes ago, this is my first podcast back. Since we had some life-changing things that went on with me. But anyway, get my camera set around here. Yeah, there we go. All right, back. But like I said, had some life-changing events that took place here. Let's start back in November, but we are back live. And we got some time to kill, and like I said, we're broadcasting live from the Wembley Center here in Wyman, Georgia, and we are broadcasting simultaneously at Facebook Live, which will some of you probably be looking at this. Another people looking at is YouTube Live, our YouTube channel. We're still in the process of trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. I think we currently sit at 9,500 and I want to say 17. So we need about 400 more subscribers to go to that YouTube page. Click the subscribe button. There's a lot of stuff that's coming down the pike. I think that people are really going to be enjoying. We got merch. We got new merch. And we're going to be setting up our Patreon and how you can become a member. Where you can be, when you become a member, you get exclusive information and videos and comments and things like that. And also coming in the works down the pike, probably within the next week or two, possibly next week, but definitely within a week or two. We're going to have my blog, my weekly blog. It's going to be called More Ramblings from an Old Black Man, which is something that I put out not frequently, but periodically on my Facebook page. I'm going to turn that into a blog where I'm going to take, the captions that I say, and I'm going to expound on them. And again, live chats are very important, and I would be very, very happy if somebody came on and just join me in the live chat so we can have a discussion. Or if you want to just come on and be a part of the guest, I can always add you virtual, or you can just come and sit in the studio with me and do this as well. But a lot of stuff's coming down the pike, and of course, Autism Awareness Month is coming up, and this is going to be very special to me, near and dear. I'm very emotional, to say the least, about what's going to be going on with that. Again, because of the life-changing experience that took place that I'll speak on later, but not now. And we're also going to be relaunching the Xavier's Journey podcast. Got a couple of people lined up for that. Got stuff coming down the pike with the Hope for Xavier Foundation as well. We're going to be doing the mother-son dance again this year. We're going to be putting together a road race, a 5K walk run in honor of my son. And of course, at the end of this year, possibly around October, we're going to be doing the Black Tie Gala, the return of the Black Tie Gala. We had to skip it last year, but we did a facsimile of it the year before, which we did at the Carriage House. Shout out to Minister OJ and the Carriage House for hosting that for us this year. But this year we're going to bring it back to its original form. So we'll be on the lookout for that kind of stuff too. And like I said, the Hope for Xavier Foundation, Xavier's Journey podcast being relaunched is something that we're really looking forward to. Still waiting on my guest here, and like I said, I don't see anybody in the live chat yet. But listen, guys, I just wanted to know what did y'all think about the Super Bowl, the game, and I guess I could go ahead and say, because I can't really expound on the Kendrick thing that he did. What are your opinions on that? Getting mixed reviews on that. Some people like it, some people didn't like it. Some people understood it, some people didn't understand it. But again, I would like to know your thoughts on that as well. And another thing that I wanted to let everybody know that this podcast, like I said, is coming from the It's a Rap with Reggie and Sam, our podcast. And today's topic, if you read it in the description, today is going to be HIV/AIDS awareness. We're going to be giving some information and try to educate some people on some things that they may or may not know, and the importance of knowing your status, and, what that is and how you can get, and if you don't know your status, know your status. Kind of cliche, but yeah, if you don't know, then you need to know it. So where you can go to get tested. We'll be answering questions of how often do you need to get tested, and what's a negative plus or what's a plus negative. Some statistics since this came to fruition, well not fruition, but came to I guess the public conversation back in 1986 when it kind of arrived on the scene. And to be quite honest, it was regarded and looked at as a gay disease. But now that through information and the evolving of people who got on the front lines and let know that it wasn't just secluded to one group of people, that it can affect anybody. I mean, there was you look at a famous tennis player, Arthur Ashe. He died but he didn't get it, from his sexual activity. He got it from a blood transfusion. And then we thought that was maybe an isolated incident, but I think the numbers will bear out that that's not the case. It was much more than that. That it was more prevalent that way. So then we had to change the way we did things, the way that we screened blood samples. When people just willy-nilly don't give blood, not knowing that they were affected. But now we had to step it up, testing for right there. So you're basically getting tested right there for all of that. So that way you wouldn't continue the contamination. But we've evolved and we continue to evolve in that area. That's basically what this podcast is about. We're partnering with AHF, and the director of that is Miss Tammy Kinney in association with Rural Women in Action, which is another group that the Hope for Xavier and the It's Around Radio Sound podcast we have partnered with. And again, it's about our community, making our community safe, making it healthy, and just because you don't know does not mean that you're dumb. It just means that you didn't know, and that's what groups like Rural Women in Action, AHL, and any of the other organizations that are here. We're here to try to upbuild and make this community a little bit better. And again, still waiting on my guests to get here. But again, I would love to see some of you guys in the live chat. I don't have anybody in the chat yet. I sent out a couple of notifications, but not to a bunch of people. But I'm really waiting on that, really wanting that interaction for you guys to go ahead and come on. And I even thought about putting up a poll question. What do you guys think about a poll question? No poll question? Like I said, I don't see anybody in the chat yet. Nope, don't see anybody in the chat yet. And I am trying. Hold on a second, lost my live feed. But I'm still here for the hang on a second here. Let me if I can come back. That was my screen share. But we are still here, okay? Going live, waiting on, again, like I said, waiting on my guests to come here. Like I said, just wanted to interact with people if they would come on. Dante, we got anybody that I got my producer, Dante. He's doing it. He's in charge of what's going on YouTube Live. So
bear with me.
Huh?
Tell him to bear with me.
Yes, yeah, bear with us. But we good. But yeah, there we go. We're back. Yeah, we are back. Got a little bit of streaming going on here. Still got, like I said, we still got no comments. Where is everybody at? Is it because it's that time of the day? Is that what's going on? Huh? Is that what's going on? Still nobody in the chat, Dante?
No, I got one person
Not
watching.
one?
Just one person watching. There's two now.
So what now?
We got two now.
Now we still don't have anybody in the chat. And still waiting on our guests to get here. They're not here either. Trying to get there. Still no live chat, huh?
No.
And we don't have anybody on another. Saying that, bear with me, guys. If you still there, I may have to go out and come back in because it seems like the stream is dying on me here. Because we're not on the playback. So still nobody in the chat, Dante?
Yeah, I still ain't got nobody right now.
Nobody you know?
No.
What's the questions?
Mm,
Any questions?
no. They ain't saying nothing yet.
Still nobody. Well, we may just have to just sit down and chat till the guests get here because we've been here for almost 15 minutes and they still haven't shown. Yeah, and they still haven't shown yet. I still have not seen them. Still not seeing them. And I think my feed is gone. Yep, we are still waiting because I guess I'll have to edit it later. Yeah, because the live on this Facebook's live is ended, so. But yeah, so we just have to start another live video here.
All right.
But you keep going though.
Okay. All right.
We're just gonna pre-launch the live on this end. Did you see any questions that you recognize?
No, I haven't seen none yet.
Okay. I had no time, just go live. 3, 2. All right, we are back. Sorry about that, we had a few technical difficulties, and we are still waiting for our guests to get here. Yeah, we're back, we're live. And like I said, we're still waiting for our guests to get here. They still have not gotten here yet. And again, I sent out I guess you could call it a promo earlier. That's why I was, letting you know that I was going to be live at 1 o'clock. And today's topic is going to be information and education about HIV/AIDS. People don't realize that there is indeed a difference between HIV and AIDS. HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. So just because you have HIV does not mean that you have AIDS, but you have the virus that causes AIDS. Is what HIV is all about. Through technology and again the evolution of study and understanding of this disease, there are people who are actually living lives with HIV that is undetectable. But that doesn't mean, just because it's undetectable, it doesn't mean that you still don't have HIV. That still means that you could possibly, it could possibly left that tree turn into AIDS. Of course, this is just general information that I have, but the people who are supposed to be here on the panel coming, they'll have a lot more information. And that's why I say if you're in the chat, if you have some questions, maybe you want to share a life experience about someone who's living with the HIV, or you notice so that you lost somebody to AIDS, because again, as I reiterated earlier, there's a lot of famous people. When you start thinking about AIDS, the first thing a lot of people think about, we talk about Magic Johnson, who was diagnosed in 1991 that he had HIV. Of course, there was a whole lot of misnomers about it, stuff that we didn't know, a lot of speculation that we took to be fact, and it turns out they weren't fact, because here we are in 2025, and Magic Johnson is still living his best life because of medicine and research that came from, I guess, him being the face of it, so to speak. I guess that's what's really the only way that you can look at it. And then to look at another athlete who passed in 85, I mean not 85, but when Arthur Ashe passed, which was I think around 86 or 87, when it was first coming out, we first really heard about the word AIDS. And of course the speculation was that Arthur Ashe was gay, but it has turned out, because that was the misnomer that we had out, that it was just restricted to gay. I said, did it move from just gay to people who use needles? And both of those were ways that you could contract it, but that wasn't the only way that you could contract it, because Magic was heterosexual, and we just taking people at their word. We don't know if he engaged in any other kind of activity or not, but we do know that he did have HIV, and he continues to have some. And he, became the face of what it is that we know today. And like I said, on the other end of the spectrum, we had Arthur Ashe, who was a very famous tennis player, one of the best in the world at the time, and he contracted it through a blood transfusion. But where we are now, we've come a very long way with the education and awareness of it. But I still do believe that we do have a long way to go till we get to where we need to be about eradicating this from the planet Earth, period. But of course, it always takes you, it takes me, it takes a collective. Not just a certain group of people got to stop doing that, or a certain group of people got to stop doing that. It's going to take a collective to eradicate it. And it's something that can be done. I think if we try, put forth the effort to it. But again, it's talking about it, the conversation that we have, and again, organizations like AHF, Rural Women in Action, of course, the health department throughout the world, in your county, I think, seminars and stuff should be had about this, because again, there's so many questions like, people will say, well, I got tested 5 years ago, but you never know, because you don't know how it can be contracted. I mean, it was so scary, people used to think to the point that, well, you can get it from sitting on the toilet seat. It was just that crazy. But that is what this podcast today is about. And again, I'm just a facilitator. I've got a platform here, and some more people who are far more versed in it than I am, are on the way, and I don't know where they are, hadn't got here yet. Miss Tammy Kinney and one of the other members of Rural Women in Action going to provide some insight and everything about this. This is them calling in right now. Tammy, what's going on?
Ask your son to come to the Lanier door and get this.
We're live right now, and he's holding the camera.
Oh, we got it.
Okay. And that's the guest, so I think they'll be here in a few minutes, and we can really get this podcast going to the way it's supposed to be going. And again, thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna get some water or something. But anyway, again, still nothing in the chat, Dante?
Nope, well, we got 7 people.
You got how many people?
7.
How many?
7.
7 people, but no questions?
No question yet.
Can you read the names off of it?
Let me see if I can.
Anybody?
A little mercy. Oh, let's see the name.
Well, I guess I can ask you a question while we sitting here waiting on them to call.
Mhm.
Um, when it comes to HIV and AIDS, what's been your experience with it? You're a 30-year-old male, heterosexual. What's been your experience with it?
To be honest, I never had an experience.
No friends, no nothing.
No,
Is it
no.
a topic of conversation that comes up from time to time?
Nowadays, no. Surprisingly, no, it doesn't.
Huh?
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that comes up a lot
Not
until
it doesn't. So it doesn't come up a lot.
no, it does not. Unless it just somebody has a scare or something like that.
Now, what would you call a scare?
Well, sexual transmitted infections, STIs.
So what you saying? If somebody contacts an STD, HIV is one of the things that they think about, not just a regular,
Yeah, not
just
just
not chlamydia or gonorrhea. It's something else.
yeah.
So HIV would shoot right to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you and so it basically. So let me ask you something. Do you know your status?
Yes.
You do. How often do you get tested?
You know what? I know. You know what? Never mind. Never mind. I know I'm clean as a whistle though. Clean as a whistle. I
So
ain't
what
never.
now?
I know I'm clean as a whistle. I never had a problem, so I think I'm all right.
But how? But it was 10 years ago when you got tested.
Yeah, it's been like a long time ago.
What made you? What prompted you to get tested?
I just wanted to be sure.
Peace of mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. Do you hear our guests coming?
I hear feet shuffling.
You hear feet shuffling. Make them pee in a minute. Yep, they are here. Come on around. They've been waiting. Hey, lady. Our guests are getting situated. Okay. We're waiting on our guest here. Bear with us. Anybody else in the chat?
I see two people. Ain't nobody saying nothing yet. Oh, there's four. Trying to see if I can see who's on here.
Nobody name you recognize?
No, I was trying to figure out how I can see names. I don't wanna.
Bear with us, folks. They're coming.
Sam, are we gonna do this every Tuesday?
Yep.
Are we gonna do this every Tuesday? Are we doing this every Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay. Cause I'm gonna do
All right.
glasses.
Are we ready?
You ready?
All righty. She on camera?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, sir.
She is? Okay.
Hello.
I'm gonna let you go ahead and all right. I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there. This is your boy Sam Hutchins from the It's a Rap with Reggie and Sam podcast. Your gracious and humble host, and we are here today. You already knew what the description was, and I'm gonna let my guest introduce herself and go ahead.
Hi, my name is Leticia Bacon. I have a domestic violence ministry, Angel of God Outreach, which is geared towards women and young teens who have been victims of rape, molestation, mental and emotional abuse. But this time, we're talking about mental health in the Black community, which is a part of Angel of God Outreach. In the Black community, we don't want to talk about mental health. It's still a stigma. So we're going to go across even teen suicide rates and mental health. So February is Black History Month, and we want to talk about the impact that our Black youth are being impacted of the laws of concerning mental health.
Okay. And how long has your ministry been in operation?
About 20 years.
And where are you located?
I'm at 854 Westbrook Street, apartment 113, and that's Griffin, Georgia, 30224.
Okay. Um, what prompted you to start this? Was it, because a lot of times people do stuff out of a life experience that they don't want to happen to somebody else, that propels them into starting, like some women, domestic violence. They'll start something, I'm just gonna teach these young girls the signs that they should look for, what they shouldn't be doing, and that'll propel them into starting a shelter for women.
Right.
What was it? Was it a life experience that propelled you to do this? Or was it just a passion that you had because you care about people?
God planted on my heart to start a program for hurting women. I did not see it in my household, but there were women around me, like kin people. I give you an example. Thanksgiving was a big thing for us. Holidays were a big thing for my family. So when we would be at our aunt's house for Thanksgiving, we would have one of our cousin-in-laws come in black and blue, patches on her face. And I would hear everybody saying, elephant in the room, elephant in the room. So as a little girl, I was like, well, where's the elephant? But then I learned that they were talking about this particular cousin. And I just saw it in other households. So that it laid on my heart to reach out to hurting women. I did not have the peace that I was actually experiencing domestic violence because it was emotional and mental, and that's the part that they leave out.
Yeah.
So I started studying my craft, and as I started studying it, I said, "Oh my, that pertains to me."
Wow. Yeah. And the reason I ask that is because I have an organization called the Hope for Xavier Foundation, which was about autism, because my son was diagnosed with autism in 1994. And that propelled me to start the organization because at the time it was such a stigma. When you heard that word that you really didn't understand it, so you started to make up your own theories about what, why, and all this other stuff. So in my regard, it was personal. Which that's why I always ask that question, because a lot of times, and I tell people I'm not an expert on autism. I can just tell you what I know from the experience gained from raising an autistic child, and I share that information because when he was diagnosed in '94, we didn't have a whole lot to work with. I was scared not scared to death, but I didn't know. I was so uncertain, but I couldn't let that uncertainty hold me back from doing what I had to do to make what we had to do. It's not me. I didn't do it by myself. He had siblings, his mom, and of course we had a community here that embraced us, trying to get out the awareness. And so that was why I asked the question, and because a lot of the causes are tied together. Why they were started, and it's a different perspective when it's as personal. But to get back to what you were saying about, I've never heard it called the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Because
as a little girl, I'm like, I don't see any elephants.
Because you took it in the literal. You take it in the literal.
As a little girl, I was taking it literal.
Yeah.
But as I grew older, I said, okay, they're talking about cousin, da da da. And it was very painful once I was of age to realize what was going on.
Yeah.
Because he would take her in the bathroom when you were here, did not tell you what, and didn't nobody address it. People continued to eat their collard greens, macaroni and cheese, like nothing was going on.
Why do you think that was?
Generationally, if that's even a word.
It is.
Generationally, domestic violence has been something that's just brushed under the rug. My mother was the only one that I knew that addressed my cousin who was beating her.
Yeah.
And so, and even the verbal abuse, my mother was the only one I've ever known to even address my cousin who was abusing his wife. Wow. So unfortunately, domestic violence is just one of those things that are unfortunately accepted and just brushed under the rug.
Wow. Cheers to your mom for doing that. Now, when you talk about the mental health side of it, when it comes to tolerance, and I'm just asking a question because I really don't have the answer. When it comes to tolerance, do you think that plays a role in why people put up with it so long?
Most definitely. Most definitely. It's sad that it's accepted. Especially in the Bible Belt, let's get very real with it. When I have my programs, whatever, if I'm having it at Decatur Library, I will do outreach in that area, inviting the different people to the event. And unfortunately, a lot of people are like, well, I haven't experienced it because I haven't had this, a fist. And so they're like, no, that doesn't pertain to me. But so many women are experiencing, like I did, emotional and mental abuse. So a lot of it isn't even identified. Because I did that, and unfortunately, I didn't identify myself as being physically abused or even domestic violence because it wasn't this.
Yeah.
But then you have emotional abuse, mental abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse. So unfortunately, you remember back in the day when our parents would say, whatever happens in this house stays in this house? And,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, that would close doors to people recognizing what's going on under their own roof and what's happening in their community.
One thing about that, because you don't know how people are built up, and I make this comment, really want to comment, statement all the time that we are the sum total of our life's experience, how we deal with stuff. And if you're not built to just keep it to yourself because you don't know how to keep it to yourself, because you're not mentally strong enough to keep it to yourself, then that can turn you into, set you up to be, susceptible to a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't have if you were able to talk about it. Because talking about it, say back in the 70s, there was no, if something happened to you, there was no grief counseling.
No, it
There
wasn't.
was no, you need to go talk to a psychiatrist. It was like you say, it
Well,
was
for
shut
our
and deal with.
community, it
Well,
was,
that's what I mean. I can only
yeah,
speak
our
for what I-
community. But other cultures have been gaining mental health for their people that we didn't. It's still a stigma in the black community when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
I know that I had a nervous breakdown about 24 years ago.
Really?
And I was in my bed for 2 years. And unfortunately, a neighbor was working in the local grocery store, and she said, Tisa, where have you been? I said, well, I had to go to a mental health care facility because I had what they call a nervous breakdown. She said, oh girl, black people don't do that. Read a book, read a magazine. I said, it's not that simple. If it was that simple, I have plenty of books. I was a senior librarian assistant with DeKalb County Library for 14 years. So I had access, yes, to all the books and magazines I needed. If it that quick of a fix, I would have done it. But my choice of drugs was my bed. I was in my bed for 2 years, and that was my protective. I know that I wouldn't hurt nobody, and could nobody hurt me.
That was your safe place.
That was my safe place. My bed was my safe place.
Okay. Wow. Now, part of this conversation, when I had talked to, Tammy earlier, was that she was wanting to, of course, this is HIV/AIDS awareness. And I've had he was off camera, but he was on camera, but off camera. We were talking about, knowing your status, and how does that, I guess what I'm trying to do is tie this into the mental health side of it. And I'm having a hard time doing that, so if you want to help me out, you
Well,
can.
unfortunately, even in the church, let's just break it down.
Yeah, let's do that.
Even in the church, because when I do the evangelizing for people to come to my programs, we go to different churches and ask the women of the congregation. We welcome them and invite them to our program. And a lot of the women, first ladies that I would ask, could I come to the church? They end up telling me, no, you can't, because their husband don't want you to bring it here. So even in the body of Christ, There's a lot of known abuse, but you don't talk about it. The side of HIV, AIDS, my brother, who was 33 years old,
Yeah.
Cedric Bacon, died 33 years of age of complications due to AIDS.
Was it pneumonia? Was it pneumonia? Because what I
No,
understood, pneumonia is like the final stage, like because your body can't.
he stopped taking his medication, and that's one thing we need to talk about mental health.
Absolutely, that's all I was about to say.
He stopped
Now we're tired of both.
He stopped taking his medication. His doctor's like, he says Cedric should not be anywhere near dying if he was taking his medication. There's so much shame that comes with the diagnosis. There's so much shame that comes with being in a DV, domestic violence situation.
Denial
Is a big part of it. I myself went through, when I told you I had a nervous breakdown for 2 years, there's so much shame that goes with it. Nobody around me knew. My family, my neighbors did not know what I was going through because I look like this. This is just what I do when I would go out. But when I would go out, my only thought was, when can I get back to my bed? Because again, that was my safety zone. But again, there's so much shame attached to mental illness, to HIV/AIDS awareness. There's so much shame that a lot of times people don't even get the care they need because of that shame. My brother worked for Grady Hospital where he could get all his medications for free.
And he still didn't want to.
And he still, no, because he did not want that
Now, what year
stigma
was this?
attached. It was 1994.
94. And see, and that's interesting because before you came on, I was on camera. I was talking about it because two events that happened around 91. Well, I think the first time I heard about it was 1986, and you really didn't get a full grasp of what it was because it was Arthur Ashe. You remember Arthur Ashe, the tennis player, and he had contracted it from blood transfusion.
Right.
But then there was the whispers because when it first came out, they said it was a gay disease that only
Yes.
gay people had. That was the stigma that was probably the biggest one, and it's still hanging around this day. That is a gay disease. But Arthur Ashe got it. But then Magic Johnson gets it in 1991. And I remember reading because I started reading because I'm a huge Laker fan. But what I've been reading Magic's memoir after he wrote a book after it was dust himself, so to speak. And he said one of the things that he remembers is that when he had to do the press conference, getting back to the shame part that you were talking about, is that they told him, do not say the word AIDS. Make sure you say HIV. Because that word AIDS was still shocking to the world. It was such a shock to the world. And even my brother, I think he called me and told me, he said, because he heard about it before I did, he called me, he said, hey, did you hear? Because we're both Lakers fans. I was like, he was. He said, man, he said, Magic gay. I said, what do you mean Magic gay? He said, he got AIDS. I was like, what? That was what he said. But like I said, fast forward now, it had the disease done what it was supposed to be. He was supposed to be dead in 2001 because they said 10 years was the life expectancy. Here we are, 2025, and he's living undetected, still with HIV. But so we made the leaps and bounds that we needed to make, and we've come a long way, but we still have we still got a long way to go as far as educating, and that's why, people like organizations like AHF and Rural Women in Action, the one that's having the part and your outreach ministry, do that? How is that part of your outreach, your ministry as well? The testing, the awareness, and all that.
It is because of my brother Cedric. I came part of Rural Women in Action because I wanted to do something to advocate our people going through, even the family who's going through their loved ones being diagnosed with HIV, AIDS. And I want to touch bases on something, going back to the church, Sam. It's unfortunate that Christians use what they say in the Bible against being gay. And unfortunately, the church uses that to show hate towards people who are homosexual. God wasn't a God of hate.
No.
God wasn't a God of hate. So I hate that. I wonder sometimes, because back then my family was very open about their religious beliefs
Yeah.
and, what my brother was doing and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think we need to operate in love. And I just sometimes wonder how would my brother feel in this age being in
Yeah.
2025, the hatred that Christians show to homosexuals. I don't understand it. It's almost like it's an excuse for me to wave what you're doing is wrong flag. And what I learned from my mom
Yeah.
and dad, God is a God of love. Not taking away from anybody's religious preference when it comes to talking about
Yeah.
homosexuality. But God is a God of love. And so I hate that Christians wave that flag. This is, God said you can't do this, but God also said that being a liar, he could not, was in what's the word? Um, God hated a liar. So if you want to talk about one thing, let's talk about all of it.
Well, for my upbringing, there are no degrees in sin. There are no
Boom.
sins that are worse than the others.
Exactly.
And I think where it comes off as hated, it may not, and I don't think they mean for it to come off as hate, but it has all the essence of hate because you say that because you got somebody in your church that tells a whole bunch of lies, but they don't come against
Pastor sleeping,
they don't come against the same visceral as somebody who's gay. See what I'm
pastor
saying?
sleeping with the women in the church. They just sweep that under the rug. I said we
Yeah.
got bigger issues than this.
Yeah.
So why are we stuck on this?
And me myself, and again, I tell people I'm not an evangelist, not a preacher, not a deacon, not any of that. I'm just a humble servant, try to serve God the best way that I can, do the best that I can. But what I try to tell people, I still think at the end of the day, it's about love.
It is.
Love conquers all.
Love conquers all.
Because I've heard, I don't know anybody personally, but I've read, and because I like to read about people who practiced the homosexuality for years, but then they got loved on so much from somebody who really cared about them and understand that they were concerned about their soul, that they started to look at it in a different light, and I'm assuming that's just what they say. I can only go by what they say. I don't know now, but they said that they turned away from that lifestyle because they realized about their soul and that the people were trying to be more concerned about the soul. And it's like I say sometimes, I think the fundamental thing that the church has forgotten is that it's the sinner that has the soul, not the sin. But we knock so hard on that sin, and we ostracize them so much on that sin, and we put
That's
so
not
many
God.
limitations. God is all inclusive.
He is.
He wants that homosexual to come to him just as much as he wants that liar to come to him. He wants that
And the adulterer.
adulterer to come to him just like he wants.
We got plenty of horrors.
For lack of
You
a
know,
better word,
for lack of
your
a better
word's not mine.
word.
I just-
No, this is not Sam talking,
No,
this is Tisa talking.
But yeah.
There are plenty of preachers just having sex with the whole gamut of women in the church, and they just sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
So, come on, let's talk about all the sins, and we're gonna talk about what we feel is one.
Yeah, and then see, and that's a whole nother podcast. But
It is.
But as I
We're
said,
gonna talk about it. This is real talk with Sam and Tisa. Real talk.
Yeah, but in getting back with the HIV and the testing, like I say, it's a great work that Tammy and the AHF is doing here because I'm on her board of Rule 1 Women in Action, and I help her out with the AHF. I even went through this to get certified on how to test for HIV, which is something she's going to start doing here pretty soon. She's getting all the ducks in a row because there are requirements that, of course, you have to go through privacy issues and all that kind of stuff. Because you want to have all that stuff in place. It's not something you wing it as you go. And I applaud her for taking the time to make sure that it's right to do that. And I was asked somebody off camera. I was like, did you know your status, and how important is it that you know your status? And the answer to that was kind of vague, but so they got tested 10 years ago, and they think that they're good, but you never know. Me myself, I do it every year because I don't want to surprise, because you may have contracted it the next day. You see what I'm saying? The day before you tested, you weren't, but then the next day it may show up. And now, you'll wait 4 or 5 years and it's manifested itself into something else. But getting back to what you were talking about the mental health issues, and the domestic violence. So what is it that what is stigma is it that you try to get rid of when you talk about the domestic violence? Do you provide a place where it's okay for them to speak about it, or because a lot of people, we did something on domestic violence, and I had a really good friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine. She died from here, matter of fact, here in White, I won't call her name, from domestic violence, which prompted me to look at it in a different light too, because once it becomes personal for you, and like I said, it was years before it even went to trial, but it was a situation that she had seen a lot and was going to get out of it, but it didn't happen. I guess the question that I'm trying to ask is there a safe, does your ministry point people towards a safe place, or just try to create an environment where it's okay for them to, okay, if you're ready to take that step, because that's what some organizations that I've talked to, they're gonna, if you're ready to take this step, come here. We're not gonna come get you. You come here and we'll go from there. So is yours that way, or is yours just, individual? This is how we're gonna help you. This is how we can help you. This is how we will help you. That type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So unfortunately, I get calls about, okay, a woman finally needs to leave, because people are so judgmental about women and have their compassion towards women who are going through bouts of domestic violence. And so you'll tell a woman, leave, but can I come to your place? And they're like, well, no, you can't come here, but you need to leave. If you can't offer a young lady a safe place, don't drill her about leaving. Yeah, you may not have experienced it, but that's my story. So unfortunately, we don't have enough safe houses. My dream and goal is to have a Winners house. When women do go to the safe houses, if it's even available beds, the program is like 3 months. Gwinnett County has a program that's much longer. I think it's maybe 12 months. It takes a long time for a woman to even get herself together. So if you're just housing her for 3 months and putting her back out there, you're kind of putting her back in the situation that she was in. Because a woman will say, I know this crazy. I know, do I want to snatch my children out of this situation? Because even, I know back in the day, I would say 15 years ago, there were even houses that if you had a teenage son with you, he would be separated from you, because of his age. So you're going into a lot of the safe houses are very cold. It's very strict. The women have to be out the house at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. I want at Winners House, which is my mother, named after my mom, at Winners House to have like a 13-month program, because you have to first address the mind.
How long do you think? Okay, and I like what you're saying, because it kind of segues into my next question. How long did you, if you had if your ideal program, how long would it take for a woman to transform from domestic violence and the residuals that came from it to I am woman, here before I'm independent now? How long do you think that would normally take, or is it really hard to put an amount on it, time on it, because everybody's different? What they went through is different. How it affected them is different, because they're different that it happened to.
Okay, so I would want my program to be at least 13 months. It takes at least 3 months to even deal with the mental aspect of domestic abuse.
Almost like detoxing it.
Yes. So I would give my women at least 3 months of detox. That's with having life coaches on hand. That's with having medical on hand. That's with having social people on hand to help them reprogram this. I can take a lady from Georgia to California, California to Canada, Canada to New York, and back to Georgia. But if you don't change this mindset, they'll end up right back in that same situation. So I would say, I would take at least, I want my program at a winter house to be at least 13 months for a woman to really find herself, for her, whatever goals she may have, to be whatever trade or going back to school. I want to provide scholarships for them, put them back on their feet, give them a living situation that's conducive to healing.
Yeah.
And so, and then in 13 months, let them graduate into another program to sustain what they just learned in 13 years. What people don't understand with domestic violence, people say you always see signs, but no, you don't. You don't always see red flags. With domestic violence, everything is so wonderful in the beginning. So you don't see any of manipulation. You don't see any of that.
Yeah.
So one day you
and
wake up and like, oh my God, how did I get here?
Yeah, that's a recurring thing that a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, because the women that I've talked to that have gone through domestic violence, that's a recurring thing. But you just said everything was great. Then all of a sudden one day he backhanded for saying something that he didn't like. Or one day she realized that he had on that was something that wasn't her favorite color. He just punched her. Okay, but after that, he got right back to everything was hunky dory, and she did another thing. Then all of a sudden it started getting more and more. But the question I wanted to ask you was, because I know you concentrate on the women, but what if a woman comes and she's got children? And because I know it's a different dynamic if the child is, say, toddler, 2 to 8, as opposed to, like you said, she may come there with a teenager, 14 to 16 years old. And if it's a girl, it's even, I would imagine it would become even more complex, because now a girl actually sees her mom and what she's going through. And how would there be counseling for them as well?
Yes, there would be counseling for the children as well. People forget about the kids.
Yeah.
Children hear, even if you send them to their room, they hear the arguing, they hear the punching, they hear the hitting, and a lot of times you're dealing with narcissists. So a narcissist know how to abuse the mom, but then show the kids love. So it gives the kids a distorted view of normality. And that's how it's able to go from generation to generation, because abuse becomes their norm. And you wonder how it keeps going if a young man has heard all of his life, from a little child to teen, their mother getting this and getting the physical and mentally, emotional, and verbal abuse.
Yeah.
Being that it becomes their norm, they'll promise themselves that they'll never do that to their lady. But unfortunately, we live what we lived. So unfortunately, a lot of the males end up doing exactly what they witnessed with their mother. And so that's how it keeps going generationally, because unfortunately the violence and abuse becomes their norm.
And it's interesting that you say that, because mine was right the opposite. My mom and dad fought. I would never put my hands on a woman because I saw that my dad did. My dad, he drank, and he turned into that person when he drank. So it taught me not to drink, and I can't say I can almost say with 100% for sure. I'm the oldest, and I got 3 siblings, and I would venture to say that none of them have abused their wives. Because I don't know if they were old enough to remember it, because I barely was old enough to remember it. But again, what you said, it depends, and it gets back to my point. It really depends on how that person individually deals with what they saw. Not to turn it too political, because say January 6th at the Capitol, some people saw that as a peaceful protest. Some people saw it, but we all saw the same thing. You see what I'm saying? But it affected us different. That's why getting out of my political part of it. But what I'm saying is my dad, by seeing how not to treat a woman, he taught me how to treat a woman. But again, I think it came from how you're raised and what you do with your life's experience. But when it comes to domestic violence, it was such a stigma in the 70s I literally, you would hear women say that that's how you know a man loves you, if he hits you upside the head. If he doesn't hit you upside, to me, I always thought that was crazy because there
I
used to
did
be
too.
there used to
I
be
did too.
I don't know how old you, but I'm gonna show my age. There used to be this cartoon called Ignat. Ignat would hit this lady in the head with a brick, and when he did, Ignat, she would say, "Oh, Ignat," because that means they knew he loved it. But that, and the subliminal message that sent, that I don't think they realized at that time. Oh, maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know how the government works back then. But he would hit her upside the head with a brick, and then she would just hearts would come out of her head, showing that she loved. Oh, Ignat. But a lot of people saw that, and it became the norm, man. They think, well, it's okay to hit a woman. But again, you would hear women would think that because I'm 7, 8, 9 years old. I'm hearing these women have these conversations, and they're saying, well, if he don't hit you, he don't care nothing about you. But that rationale I never got that part. But can you speak to anything about that?
Yes, I used to hear all men, this hurts, this hurts, verbal abuse hurts, emotional abuse hurts, sexual abuse hurts, financial abuse hurts. So women have to realize that there's it's a big umbrella when you say domestic violence.
Because men are in that too. And again, we get back to the shame part. A lot of men are getting their butts beat too because they're not fitting to hit a woman, and a woman knows that she's just abusing them, beating them, hitting them, cussing them out, calling them out, demeaning them, degrading them, and doing all of this stuff. It gets back to it's probably more mental abuse than it is physical abuse because a man's stronger than a woman. So if she punches him, knowing that he's not gonna punch her back, but if he punches her that one time, she probably punch him again. But anyway. That was what I was saying, because the men are under that umbrella too, because I don't think people to think that it's just.
Men are under that umbrella too. Angel of God Outreach, we also was speaking with men who were victims of domestic violence.
Yeah.
I asked one young man, what prompted you to abuse your wife?
Yeah.
And he shared with me that he lost his virginity to his mom. And so that goes back to mental illness. A lot of, people think that men are the only ones that abuse, but what you're dealing with is a spirit. You're not dealing with gender. You're dealing with a spirit. And if that spirit is molesting the girls, they're also molesting the boys.
Well, that's why I think, when you think about, not to go back, we're going to circle the wagons here now, about the homosexuality, I think that is a spirit as well. I think homosexuality is a spirit, and if we deal with it from a spiritual standpoint, as opposed to saying physical, and maybe they're all tied in, but I just still think of the spirit because a lot of people think, well, the only reason that this person is gay is because they were molested as a child or they were abused as a child. But a lot of people that I talk to, none of that took place, and I've talked to people that have said, I felt this way since I was 8 years old, but they didn't say anything to anybody about it. You see what I'm saying? But at 8, how do you talk to somebody? Because you don't understand it yourself. But again, that's another podcast in another room at another time.
Right.
But I'm just saying, spirituality, how important that is to
Yes,
recognize that.
When they're telling a young lady to leave, or a young man to leave an abusive situation, people say, "Oh, I would never take a guy who would do this to me, hit me." But what they have to realize, when a woman gets into the physical part of it, he's already programmed the mental part of it, and the hitting is just like the little cherry on top. That's just a small.
Well, I mean,
part of it. The physical part is such a small part of it, and they start with the mental first.
And that's it. And it's funny. Well, not funny. It's interesting that you say that because that's the tactic of a pimp. He'll tell anybody. And for one of the most famous lines in a black quotation movie, Call It Back, the one he said, anybody can control a woman's body, but if you can control her mind,
that's it.
He said,
That's it.
yeah, he said, if you can control her mind.
So they start there first.
So, and that's what I'm saying.
Like
So,
pimps, they start there for
and
taking
that's-
care of them, rescuing them.
Well,
the
that's the
them,
sale.
you know, yeah.
That's the sale.
That's the sale.
That's the sale that they give them. They, hey, you can drive this kind of car. You may, if you work hard, you can do what I tell you to do. You do this, you do this. And next thing you know, you out there on the track, so to speak. And you still ain't got, but you were chasing that dream. And he sold you, which is basically what he does. And that's why I say it's a spirit that, and I think with all our ills, there's spirits. It took me, and I still had to learn this all, but I had to understand it. Shout out to my wife, Dawn, when she told me about spirits. We had conversations about she said that's a spirit. She said that's a spirit, and I just said she said you have to understand when you entertain those kind of spirits, those thoughts. But even getting back to it, anything that we do is a thought first before we put it into action. I don't care who. There's no such thing as I didn't think about it. Yes, you did. You thought about it. You went ahead and done it anyway.
But I really feel that people are just
So does
seeking
your
love.
yeah,
They're
does your
just
yeah
seeking love
acceptance?
and acceptance. And being with Mama Diane, Tammy's mom, has been a blessing to me. We were talking about, I was on this show, What Would You Do?
Yeah.
And the situation was, if you saw a young man and his wife celebrating their anniversary, and she goes to the bathroom, and then his lover comes in and kisses him, what would you do? Would you tell the wife? Of course, I was the one that ended up
So you would
telling the wife.
You would have
I
told her?
ended up telling the wife because I saw the impact that being on the down low caused my brother and my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
My brother was, I guess you would say, on the down low.
Yeah.
He was married to my sister-in-law, wonderful young lady, wonderful, who took care of my brother to the bitter end. And I asked her, how were you able to be there for my brother? And he chose a different lifestyle from your union. And she said he was the love of my life.
Obviously, she went in those
He was the love of
instances.
my life.
Yeah,
And
she
I was
loved
there
who he
for-
was
Yes,
and separated that
yes.
from what he did.
Yes.
Because that's a lot of, when you deal with somebody who has a drug abuse problem, and you stay with them and you stay with them and you won't leave them, and the first thing people want to know, why do you? But you learn the essence of that person, and every once in a while they'll show you enough of that you can hold on to, and that's how you wind up. When you've been with somebody who's been on drugs for 30 years, but again, you love who they were, not what they did, because you understood that what they did is not who they are. And when we find out who they are, that's who we love.
And what we have to realize too, if you're not gonna be by that person's side, if you're just throwing out there, leave. If you're just throwing out there, I would never do that, I would never accept that. Can you be that person's partner to get them out of an abusive situation? Can you be that person that can put them in a safe space?
Yeah.
Because if you can't, don't put your mouth on it. If you can't do anything to help, because a lot of times we'll tell a girl to leave, and we put them in a worse situation than they were. A lot of women lose their lives to domestic violence. It's much easier said than done. Just leave. Because again, the woman gets used to that crazy. Usually it's very symptomatic. Like I had a young lady who knew that come the weekend, that's when the abuse would happen.
Yeah.
On Friday through Sunday. But Monday through Thursday, they were in family bliss. Everything looked the norm. But he was an alcoholic, so on Friday, that's when he would drink. That's when he would abuse her and even abuse the kids. But do I leave this norm that snatch my kids out of their home, out of their norm, out of their, what they may feel, safe space, to a cold environment of a safe house that's gonna put them back on the street in 3 months, and a lot of them end up right back where they started, because they know this. You know this crazy. You know the symptomatic schedule of this crazy. So a lot of women, again, if you don't have a safe place to put her, keep your mouth off of it.
Wow. I interviewed a young lady couple of years ago, of course, I think October is Domestic Violence Month.
It is, it is.
And then I was doing a series of interviews with, people that had been through it, and of course, they were, person's life experience, I tell sometimes what you go through, you're not going through it just for yourself, you're going through it for somebody else, somebody's gonna be watching how you go through it. And one thing that I got out of that, podcast, she told me, she said, one of the most disrespectful things you can say to a person who's in a domestic violence situation is, why didn't you just leave? She said that is so disrespectful.
It is.
Because people, could you speak onto that, what she meant by that? I understood, but for my listeners, I got almost 10,000 subscribers, so to explain to somebody who may not know what that means, and I think you will be a better job at it. But then it was a moment for me. I mean, it was. I was like, whoa! I never even thought about something because I was on that same train line. Why didn't you just leave? Just pick your time and sneak away. But when she said that, and then she explained. Could you speak to that?
Well, domestic violence is a cycle. It's a cycle. The abuse will happen, and what you got to realize, a part of domestic violence, especially if you're dealing with a narcissist, they separate you from your norm, your family, and your friends. So they kind of separate you from them until they become your source. Because the same person who beat you down is the same person that's there to bring you up. And they call that the honeymoon phase. So when your heart is in love with this abuser, all you're hoping for what was. Because it didn't start out like this. So I'm praying that things are going to get better. Now he's here. He's my knight in shining armor. Things are getting better. And then the cycle continues. Because they come to you after the abuse like, I got you. I love you.
I'll never do that again.
I'll never do that again. Trust me, you made me do this. So a lot of guilt and shame, has the woman thinking, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not whatever. So they end up blaming and internalizing it themselves. All of this is manipulated by the abuser. So in your heart, you don't have anybody but them. Because everybody who was there for you, your family gets tired of being on that roller coaster. So I don't even hold, even with me, I don't even hold my family who had to walk away from the Tisa, and I'll say Butch situation, because at time they're there to help me, I just slid right back into the same thing.
Yeah, I had a cousin, and again, I'm not going to call it names. He had a sister, and his sister would always get into a fight with this guy. And he said like twice he went and took up for his sister, but he said, but then she wound up right back with him. And he said it wasn't that he didn't love his sister, it's just that he knows how this thing is going to play out. But for me, that's kind of dangerous because one of these times when you don't go, he may wind up killing them.
So another thing is we have the No More Shame campaign where we make mirrors for women who have been victims of domestic violence, and we put affirmations in there for them to build themselves up from the inside out. And what people don't understand, again, that person didn't start, there was no red flags. The person did not start out like that. So this person, went to your girlfriends and your people and said, oh, honey, I done met this great dude, and he's this and he's that, and he is the best charmer, he's the best guy. When you start getting this, you're too ashamed and embarrassed to go to your people and say, this guy I told you was the man, he's beating me. This guy I told you was my knight in shining armor, he is, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse. So women just have to stop identifying this, not being hit, because I was never this. But it was the manipulation of my husband was in the Marines, so he knew different kind of tactics, pain tactics. But he was like, I didn't hit you. But when you put my arm behind my back, like you was about to break it, yes. Would you pin me in the bathroom for 3 hours and make me listen to you? And when I pushed you away, that was your opportunity to put me in these, chokeholds and So, wow. It's so much that goes with it. So somebody, like you said in the beginning, someone just saying leave It's so much more to it than that.
Yeah,
And a lot of women lose their lives when they just leave. A woman, most women, it takes 7 times to get them out of an abusive situation. Seven
7.
times for them saying, okay, I'm finished. Okay, I'm finished. Okay, I'm done.
Why 7?
That's what
I'm wondering.
that's just
Yeah,
what
yeah,
statistics
okay.
show. I don't know what that's based on, but they say 7, when women will try to leave 7 times before she just
Finally.
out of it. I can't even promise you, Sam, that I wouldn't be in the same situation if he had not divorced me.
Really?
Yes. I can't say if I would still be there, because I was there for almost 30 years.
That's a long time.
It's a long time.
How much of that was not what it was supposed to be?
I would
Out of
say,
the 30 years,
after 30 years,
how much of it, did it start at year 10? Did it start at year 15?
it started at, I would say it started at year 5, 6.
Really? So you,
And I did not see it though. I thought this person was the love of my life. I thought this is what I had prayed for. Yeah, it's so much shame and embarrassment that goes with it. And that's the reason a lot of women stay in it. A lot of women stay in it for the financial part of it. My ex took care of everything. I didn't know a lot about paying bills. I was 50 years old upon the divorce. So here I am, a 50-year-old woman who's never had obligations of paying bills, obligations of taking care of herself. So here I am out in the middle of the ocean, not knowing how to swim and
So
saying,
yeah.
can somebody please help me?
so basically you had to reinvent yourself at 50.
Yes, yes. And it was a whole new world, different world.
How so?
I didn't know the value of money because I never needed it. I went from mom and dad who spoiled me rotten to being married. And so I was never in a situation where, I didn't know the value of money because I never needed money. Everything was always provided for me. The high-end cars, high-end jewelry, home, all of that. And so unfortunately, I didn't see the signs of domestic abuse again until I started Angel of God Outreach and started studying my craft. And then when I started studying past the physical abuse, I started reading about mental abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse. So I was like, oh my God, that's me. And so when I had the nervous breakdown, I was in my bed for 2 years. My mother-in-law asked me, Tisa, how did you measure your time? I said, I went into the depression in spring. I was in my bed from spring, summer, fall, winter, to another spring, summer, fall, winter. And that's how I was able to time how long I was in my bed. So again, there are so many things that go with rescuing a woman from a domestic violence situation. And again, if you don't have a safe place to put her, you need to stop saying, if I was you, I would leave. There's no way. One woman told me, it's your fault that you were abused. I said, it is? She said, yeah, because I would have walked away. If the first time any sign of domestic violence, I would have walked away. Being that you didn't walk away, you brought it on yourself. Don't never tell a woman that. Because there's already enough shame and embarrassment that she's going through. You don't have to put a woman down who is in it because that's the life that you live. You could walk away from it, but every woman can't just up and walk away from it. It's so many factors that impede all of that.
Wow. This is an amazing story.
It is.
Your story. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the topic. The topic is great, and it's one that I feel really great about. But what I'm saying is that your story, in itself, is very inspirational, and I would love to sit down with you for you to tell your story because one, again, as I reiterated earlier, sometimes we go through stuff, it's not just for us. And I think you realize that, which is what propelled you to start your ministry. So somebody else can understand that there is hope. so everybody can understand that there is a better life for me. I can, because somebody else did. And I would love to sit down and just hear your story.
Yes, I would love to share it. I would love to share it.
Be
God
that person,
said that
because being personal, and like I said, the strength and transparency is unbelievable. What it does for people, because people see enough of, well, that won't happen to me, or I wouldn't have did that, I'm living my life, so this could possibly happen to me. But we did a podcast a couple of years ago, and shout out to Debria Brown, Wisdom Nuggets. She brought up something. She said you could be similar to what you were saying. You could be living in the biggest house in the world, have the finest car but people on the outside think you got it going on, but they don't know you're getting drugged across the floor by the hair of your head. But that's real.
it
That
is
is
very
absolutely
real.
real. In your story, I would love it. Definitely going to give you a call so we can get back and do it. We don't have to wait till October. I mean, we can start it before then, and move toward October. I would love to just come on for like because normally the podcast is like 3 hours when I have a guest, because I just want to just cause it's about the guest, as opposed to today Tammy gave me a topic, and of course we went. It wasn't quite the topic.
We kind of
yeah, but we circled the wagons, and we got and we got it all in. So in that way, so the podcast is like an hour and a half. But when it's a personal podcast, when somebody's coming on to share their story, because I think it's one that will be inspirational, and it's going to help some people. Because even me, I haven't been through any domestic violence or anything like that, I'm inspired by your story. And by you, I thank you so much for being a part.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to do this. And we also want to let people know that my grandson, who is autistic, will be giving a scholarship in the name of your son. And we're going to be doing it on Sunday. And what we're going to do, I want to people to adopt a cause. And so we want people to adopt the cause of autism and match what my grandson Ezekiel Cedric Charles Williams will be giving to your son on Sunday. In the name of your son, God bless his soul. And I'm so sorry for your loss. And so, but we've got to make a difference and let his legacy live on, and the legacy that you have created in the autism community. We want it to go forth and get more education in the school system, the public school system, for kids who have autism, for it to be one-on-one special needs support in our public school. And that's something my daughter, Benicia, has been fighting for. My grandson is for someone to be in there with him because of the spectrum of the autism, for someone to be with him all day as opposed just for a couple of hours, a specialist in the room for a couple of hours. So we want people to adopt. I want them to adopt Ezekiel Cedric Charles Williams, adopt the cause, and give into it so the proceeds can go to better educating our kids who are in public settings with autism.
Absolutely. And again, say right here live in front of all my people, thank you guys so much.
Yes.
We're
so excited about it.
Yeah, this was, like I said, this has been my first podcast since October. And I kind of fell off the horse, so to speak. And again, hearing your story, like I said, it maybe not about, but it was the way that you went about it and the passion in which you tell it. That's the way I am about the Hope for Xavier Foundation, inspired by my son Xavier, and that's the part of the thing that's been helping with my healing. Again, earlier I told people I thank them for their prayers, the encouraging words, because people have been inboxing me, calling and checking on me every once in a while. Because, like I said, this happened back in November, and a lot of times, after the funeral,
Everything goes away, and that's when it hits you.
And those moments
when all the phone calls have stopped, people not bringing by the food, and that gives it hits you after all of that.
Yeah, and shout out, like I said, I got two of the best pieces of advice I got, and again, I won't disclose their names, but they're very, very dear to me. And I just met her a couple of years ago, but anyway, she told me, she said to be patient with your grief. Wow. And then the other one came from out of nowhere, and again, I'm not gonna say the name, but it was so simple, but it was so powerful when she said it. Get back to being Xavier's dad. That, and I didn't know when I was gonna start doing the podcast and start back with it, but I started doing the stuff that was supposed to be done. Because again, my motto and my mantle has got to be to celebrate his legacy and not mourn his death. And that's what we're going. And so, again, I thank you so much.
We're so excited about it.
As am I. And we and the people at the Hope for Xavier Foundation, we are so grateful and so thankful for this. And I got to give a shout out to Gina and Sam Mitchell. They've invited me out to Indiana to speak about Xavier at a gala that they're having in Indiana.
I want to join you.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
they're doing everything. I mean, they're flying us out, paying for the hotel. They just wanted to come and share because they never actually met Xavier, but they met him through the podcast because her son Sam, that's his name. He has a podcast called Autism Rocks and Rolls, and he's doing some wonderful things in Indiana. And they reached out to me, so. It's the healing is started, you know, the helping has started, and again, thank you so much for being here. And we're gonna do this a couple of more times because again, your story, not just for domestic violence, but as a human condition, how it helps a human condition.
Yeah, there's so much shame that goes, even with, I applaud my daughter. She is so awesome.
Yeah.
She's such a wonderful mother. Both my girls, they're wonderful mothers. I love to see how they take care of their children and how the mothers that they are. My daughter, Benicia, is so hands-on with my grandson. I thank God for the heart that she has. But there's a lot of shame, unfortunately, when a person has a child with special needs. A lot of times, I learned that sometimes the husband or the father takes it personally when the child has any kind of disability. And a lot of times in our Black community, we don't seek the need for our children to advocate for them because we say, oh, they're fine. Or they're
Well,
fine.
that's the denial.
They're fine.
That's
It's
the
the denial part of it.
That-
Denial is a big piece in mental illness. Denial is a big piece in having a child with special needs. Denial and shame. And we have to get out of that.
We gotta
The
get out
Bible
of that.
says that we are healed by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. That means whatever we're going through is there for someone else, so we can bring them and heal them from our experiences.
Yeah.
So we just have to get away from the shame and the stigmas that we have with our children, the stigmas that we have experienced abuse, just the stigmas. We have to get rid of them so we can heal our people and heal our children, heal our ladies, heal our teens. Georgia has been #1 in domestic violence for so many years,
Wow.
for teen domestic violence for so many years. So all of it goes hand in hand though. Because if you have a mother who is struggling with depression and she has a special needs kids, there's a lot of times there's so much she can do for the child
Because she
even
can't do it for herself. Yeah. Absolutely.
So the healing has to begin in our community.
Absolutely. And again, thank you guys. Thank you so much for this. This has been uplifting for me from a personal standpoint because I needed to get back up and start doing what it is I'm supposed to be doing. That was inspired by my son, and you've been a big help with that. And thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
So excited.
We're all
about
in this
that.
together.
Absolutely.
It takes a village. It takes a
Absolutely.
village. And we
Absolutely.
need to be
Absolutely.
that village that's building our
Absolutely.
kids up. We need to be that village that we're supporting our women and teens who are hurting. We need to just be that support, that circle of love that they need for healing.
That we need, absolutely.
Yes.
And I got to give a shout out to my super producer, Dante Hutchins, over there on the other side of the room.
Dante!
With
In the house!
with the YouTube audience. How much did we have in the chat? Because you never even told me about my chat over there.
I can't see
You
anything.
don't know those people. I gotta have to go back and answer them on YouTube.
Yes, I don't know.
After I edit this, but this has been, again, this has been great. Shout out to you. Shout out to Tammy Rule Women in Action. AFSM.
Yes.
And if anything anybody want to shout out before we get out of here, this will be, I'm probably going to have to do a little editing, but it'll be up probably by the end of this week, and I'll send you a link. And please, ma'am, please, sir, like, share, and subscribe. It is free. It is absolutely free. It takes you less than 3 minutes. Click, and that notification bell, so when I do go live on Facebook or YouTube, you will be notified, so you can come back and get in and continue to support this channel. But you have anybody you want to shout out before we get out of here?
Shout out to Tammy Kinney. You rock, girl. I love you so much. I just thank God for the connection. It's God is such an intentional God.
Absolutely.
And for me to be right across the street, God is right from you know, taking care of Mama, Mama Diane, and so who suffered a stroke. And so I'm on the team of taking care of Mama. And so God just kind of, he's very intentional. It's not a coincidence that you're right there, and that Ezekiel, my grandson, is autistic, and Xavier legacy is going to live on and on and on, and will make a difference in the life of my grandson, the work that you have done. So we want to thank you, the autism community, want to thank you for all of the work that you have put towards the autistic community, because you have really done a lot in Xavier's life, and it was just admirable, the things that you did even as a father, and as it was just wonderful to even see and witness. So we want Xavier's legacy to live on, and that's what the Ezekiel Scholarship is all about. Adopt a cause. We want you to adopt the cause so we can have more funding for our children to do even more research on autism. So yes, we want to make a difference, and you have made a big difference in the autism community. So thank you for your work, Sam.
Yeah, you're welcome, but I can't take all the credit, because I got an incredible team behind me that has helped me, and again, the way he was raised and the people that were in his life, but I would never take credit for doing it all by myself, because I couldn't have done it without myself. Not saying I wouldn't have done it, but I couldn't. But to be to where we are, I could not have done it without the support of my team. You know, of course, you know, Xavier's, you know, his people as well. So it's been a wonderful cause, and the journey's not over. We're going to continue going forward. And again, thank you guys so much. And Reg, I thought you would join me here, but I was waiting for you to add you, but you didn't show up. But hopefully you'll see it in the replay. But like we always like to say at the end of every broadcast, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
All right, now take care of that.